Hello, welcome to this channel. Today, we will learn about an explosive storyline developing in Salem that promises to shake the foundations of several families while exploring the deep-rooted complexities of forgiveness, redemption, and the consequences of past actions. This compelling narrative centers around Aaron Green, Theo Carver, and the troubled young man named Liam Sakechko, whose return to Salem after years away will set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. Aaron Green faces his past. Aaron Green finds himself in an incredibly vulnerable position as news spreads throughout Salem that his old enemy has returned to town. The anxiety that grips Aaron isn't just about confronting someone from his past, it's about facing the demons that have haunted him since his younger years, demons that shaped who he has become today. Aaron's emotional state becomes increasingly fragile as he learns that this person who once made his life unbearable is now walking the same streets, breathing the same air, and potentially crossing paths with him at any moment. The weight of these memories bears down on Aaron with crushing intensity. Every corner he turns, every familiar face he sees, brings with it the possibility of an unwanted reunion. His hands tremble slightly when he thinks about those days, and his sleep becomes restless with dreams of confrontations both past and future. The psychological impact of knowing your tormentor has returned cannot be understated. It's a wound that never fully healed, now threatening to reopen with devastating force. Liam Sakechko, the name that haunts. Liam Sakechko, a name that sends shivers down the spines of those who remember him from years ago. This young man, whose troubled past is well documented throughout Salem's community, once wielded his pain like a weapon, turning Theo Carver's school experience into an absolute nightmare. The hallways that should have been filled with learning and friendship instead became battlegrounds where Theo had to navigate daily humiliation, verbal attacks, and the constant fear of what Liam might do next. Liam's cruelty knew no bounds during those dark days. He targeted Theo specifically, exploiting his vulnerabilities and differences with calculated precision. The taunts echoed through cafeterias, the physical intimidation occurred in blind spots where teachers couldn't see, and the psychological warfare was relentless. For Theo, who was already navigating the world differently due to his autism spectrum condition, Liam's bullying created layers of trauma that would take years to process and overcome. But what drove Liam to such darkness? According to sources close to the situation, Liam's own childhood was marked by profound suffering and abandonment. Raised primarily in the foster care system while his parents served time in prison, Liam never experienced the stability, love, and guidance that most children take for granted. His formative years were spent bouncing between temporary homes, never truly belonging anywhere, never having anyone to call his own. This abandonment created a rage inside him that he couldn't process or understand, and that rage found its outlet in hurting others, specifically those like Theo, who seemed to have the family structure and support that Liam desperately craved but could never have. Abe Carver steps in, a beacon of hope. Enter Abe Carver, the legendary former mayor of Salem and one of the community's most respected figures. Abe, who has dedicated his entire life to justice, fairness, and helping those who society has cast aside, makes a decision that shocks many in Salem but perfectly exemplifies his character. He agrees to mentor Liam Sakechko through a literacy program. This isn't just about teaching someone to read better. It's about recognizing that behind every troubled soul is a story of pain, a history of wounds that never healed properly. Abe understands this better than most. His own brother Theo was killed by a corrupt police officer years ago, an event that shaped Abe's entire career and philosophy. He knows that the cycle of pain and violence continues unless someone brave enough steps in to break it. When Abe sits across from Liam for their first mentoring session, he sees beyond the reputation, beyond the cruel acts of the past. He sees a young man who was failed by every system meant to protect him, a child who grew up without guidance or love, someone who lashed out because he didn't know any other way to express the agony consuming him from within. Abe's compassion doesn't excuse Liam's past actions, but it acknowledges the human complexity behind them, the understanding that hurt people often hurt people, and that redemption requires someone willing to extend a hand even when it seems undeserved. the literacy program becomes more than just an educational opportunity. It transforms into a lifeline for Liam, a chance to rewrite his story, to become someone different than the angry, lost boy who inflicted so much pain on others. Through Abe's patient guidance, Liam begins to understand that his past doesn't have to define his future, that change is possible if he's willing to do the difficult work of confronting his demons and making genuine amends. The inevitable confrontation, Theo and Liam face to face. The moment that everyone has been anticipating, and dreading, finally arrives when Theo Carver and Liam Sakechko come face to face in Salem. The air between them crackles with tension, weighted down by years of unresolved trauma, anger, and pain. For Theo, seeing Liam again triggers a flood of memories he's worked hard to process and move beyond, the humiliation, the fear, the days when he dreaded going to school because he knew Liam would be there waiting. Theo's hands clench involuntarily as he locks eyes with his former tormentor. His breathing quickens, and for a moment, he's transported back to those horrible days when he felt powerless, when every day was a survival test. The autism spectrum condition that Liam once exploited as a weakness now serves as a different kind of lens through which Theo processes this confrontation. He sees patterns others might miss, he remembers details with crystal clarity, and he feels emotions with an intensity that can be overwhelming. But Theo has grown since those dark days. He's no longer the frightened boy who cowered under Liam's cruelty. Time, therapy, and the unwavering support of his father Abe have helped him develop strength and resilience. As he stands before Liam now, Theo recognizes something he couldn't have seen years ago when he was consumed by his own suffering. He sees pain in Liam's eyes, not the cruel satisfaction of a bully, but genuine remorse mixed with shame. The confrontation becomes less about revenge and more about understanding. Theo finds himself asking the questions he's carried for years: why me? What did I do to deserve that treatment? And as Liam stands before him, stripped of the bravado that once made him seem invincible, Theo begins to see the truth. Liam targeted him not because of anything Theo did, but because Liam was drowning in his own pain and didn't know how else to cope. Liam's path to redemption, words long overdue. In one of the most emotionally charged moments to hit Salem in years, Liam finally does what many thought would never happen: he apologizes. But this isn't a casual sorry thrown out to make himself feel better. This is a genuine, soul-bearing acknowledgement of the damage he inflicted, the pain he caused, and the years of trauma he contributed to in Theo's life. Liam's voice trembles as he speaks, his eyes unable to meet Theo's at first because the shame is too overwhelming. He talks about his childhood, about the foster homes where he never felt wanted, about watching other kids get adopted while he remained behind, about the parents who were present in name only but absent in every way that mattered. He explains how that abandonment created a rage inside him that he didn't have the tools to process, how seeing Theo with his loving father Abe triggered something dark and envious in him that he couldn't control. I made your life hell because my own life was hell, Liam admits, his voice breaking. I saw you with your dad, saw how much he loved you and supported you, and it made me hate you because I wanted that so badly and knew I'd never have it. But that doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing excuses what I did. I was cruel, I was vicious, and I targeted your differences because I'm a coward who couldn't face my own pain. The apology doesn't erase the past, nothing can do that. But it represents a crucial step in both their journeys. For Liam, it's about taking accountability for his actions rather than hiding behind his tragic backstory as an excuse. For Theo, it's about hearing the acknowledgement he deserved years ago, the validation that what happened to him was wrong and that he wasn't to blame. Liam expresses his hope to start fresh, to prove through actions rather than words that he's different now, that Abe's mentorship has opened his eyes to the kind of man he wants to become versus the troubled boy he was. He doesn't ask for forgiveness, he knows he doesn't deserve it yet, and maybe never will. But he asks for the chance to exist in the same community without causing further harm, to rebuild his life without destroying anyone else's in the process. Understanding the complexity, pain behind the bully. Theo finds himself grappling with a profound realization that challenges everything he thought he understood about his tormentor. The question that keeps circling through his mind is one that Abe has gently encouraged him to consider: could there have been immense pain hidden behind Liam's bullying behavior? Was the cruelty a mask for suffering that Liam didn't know how to express or process in healthy ways? This isn't about excusing the inexcusable or minimizing the very real trauma that Theo endured. Rather, it's about acknowledging the complicated truth that people are rarely simply good or evil. They're complex beings shaped by their experiences, circumstances, and the support systems they did or didn't have access to during their formative years. Liam's foster care background, his absent parents serving prison sentences, and his lack of stable attachments created the perfect storm for a troubled child who would grow into a troubled teenager capable of inflicting serious emotional harm on others. Theo wrestles with this knowledge. Part of him wants to hold on to the anger, to refuse to see Liam as anything other than the monster who made his school years unbearable. But another part of him, the part that has been nurtured by Abe's wisdom and compassion, recognizes that understanding doesn't equal forgiveness, and that seeing Liam's humanity doesn't diminish the validity of his own suffering. The power of change: people evolve. One of the most profound themes emerging from this storyline is the exploration of how people change as they mature. The Liam who terrorized Theo in their younger years is not necessarily the same person standing before him now, years later, with the benefit of Abe's mentorship and the perspective that comes with age and reflection. This doesn't mean that past actions are erased or that victims owe their tormentors a second chance. But it does acknowledge the reality that human beings have the capacity for growth, self-awareness, and transformation, even those who have committed terrible acts. Liam is still troubled, still carrying the scars of his traumatic childhood, but the nature of his troubles has evolved. He's no longer lashing out at others to mask his pain. Instead, he's attempting to confront that pain directly, to understand it, and to find healthier ways of coping that don't involve destroying other people's lives in the process. Abe's role in this transformation cannot be overstated. His willingness to see potential in someone that most of society has written off creates the space for genuine change to occur. Through the literacy program and their mentoring relationship, Abe provides Liam with something he's never had before: a stable, caring male role model who believes in his capacity for redemption. This belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as Liam begins to internalize a different narrative about himself, not as the abandoned, angry foster kid who hurts others, but as someone capable of learning, growing, and contributing positively to his community. Hank Northrup brings Liam to life. Behind this compelling character is actor Hank Northrup, whose casting carries deep significance for the Days of Our Lives family. Hank is the son of the late Wayne Northrup, who immortalized the role of Roman Brady on the show for many years, and Lynn Herring, who plays Lucy Coe on General Hospital. Wayne Northrup passed away in November 2024 after battling Alzheimer's disease, leaving behind a legacy of memorable performances and a family who loved him deeply. When Hank received the call on his birthday, January 9, 2025, informing him that he had been cast on Days of Our Lives, he broke down in tears. The timing felt cosmic, as if his father had sent him a birthday gift from beyond, helping him cope with the profound grief of losing his dad. It was almost like my dad had given me a birthday present, the first birthday after his passing, to help me through the trauma of dealing with his passing, Hank shared in an interview. Hank's first scenes are with James Reynolds, who plays Abe Carver and was one of Wayne Northrup's closest scene partners during his years on the show. The emotional reunion between Hank and James on set was powerful, with James embracing the younger actor and expressing how much he loved Wayne and how excited he was to work with his son. This generational connection adds another layer of meaning to the mentorship storyline between Abe and Liam. Art imitating life as an older, experienced actor guides and supports the son of his former colleague. Hank brings authenticity and depth to the role of Liam, understanding from personal experience what it means to carry pain and to find healing through unexpected connections. His performance promises to capture the complexity of a young man trying to atone for his past while building a different future, making Liam a character that viewers will find themselves unexpectedly invested in despite his troubling history. The broader implications: forgiveness and justice. This storyline raises profound questions that resonate beyond the fictional world of Salem and into our own lives. What do we owe those who have harmed us? Is forgiveness a gift we give to ourselves, or is it something that must be earned through genuine change and amends? Can someone who has inflicted serious trauma on another person ever truly make things right, or are some wounds too deep to heal? Theo's journey through this confrontation becomes a meditation on these questions. He doesn't rush to forgive Liam, and the storyline respects that realistic complexity. Forgiveness, if it comes at all, will be a process, not an event. It will require Liam to prove through consistent actions over time that his change is genuine, not just a performance designed to make himself feel better or escape consequences. At the same time, the narrative doesn't villainize Theo if he chooses not to forgive. The show acknowledges that victims are not responsible for their abusers' rehabilitation, that healing is personal and non-linear, and that sometimes the healthiest choice is to acknowledge the apology without offering absolution. Theo has every right to his anger, his hurt, and his hesitation to trust someone who once made his life unbearable. Salem watches and waits. As this drama unfolds, all of Salem becomes invested in the outcome. Aaron Green watches nervously, wondering if Liam's return will trigger a domino effect that brings more pain into his own life. Abe continues his mentorship, believing in the power of second chances while remaining realistic about the challenges ahead. And Theo stands at a crossroads, forced to decide whether understanding his former bully's pain means he must forgive him, or whether he can acknowledge Liam's humanity while still maintaining healthy boundaries to protect his own well-being. The week of October 20th to 24th promises to bring unexpected developments that will test all of these relationships and force characters to confront their deepest beliefs about justice, mercy, and the possibility of redemption. Will Liam prove that his change is authentic? Can Theo find peace whether he chooses to forgive or not? And what role will Abe play in helping both young men navigate this emotionally treacherous terrain? Conclusion: a story of complexity and hope. This storyline refuses to offer easy answers or simplistic resolutions, which is precisely what makes it so compelling and important. Real life rarely provides us with clear-cut heroes and villains. Instead, we encounter complex human beings carrying invisible wounds, making choices that ripple outward in ways they often don't understand, and hopefully, if they're lucky, finding paths toward healing and growth. Liam Sakechko's return to Salem and his brutal confrontation with Theo Carver, one-to-one with the person he once tormented mercilessly, represents one of those rare soap opera moments that transcends entertainment and touches something deeply human. It asks us to consider how we respond to those who have hurt us, how we balance justice with mercy, and whether we believe in the human capacity for transformation. Days of Our Lives spoilers confirm that the week of October 20th to 24th will deliver these unexpected confrontations and emotional moments that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. The performances, the writing, and the emotional weight of this storyline promise to leave viewers thinking long after the credits roll, wrestling with the same questions that Theo, Liam, and Abe are confronting on screen. So make sure you're watching as this powerful narrative unfolds, as Salem becomes the backdrop for a story about pain, accountability, and the complicated journey toward redemption that we all, in our own ways, are walking. Don't miss a single moment of this unforgettable drama.